It's a battle of giants in the Grand Chess Tour. Fabiano Caruana with the white pieces takes on the legendary Vladimir Kramnik in a rapid showdown. Caruana kicks things off with e4, and we get a classic Ruy Lopez on the board. Both sides develop their pieces to the most standard, solid squares. No surprises yet. White builds a solid center with c3 and d4, and after a quick trade of pawns, the central files are opened. Both players are maneuvering their knights for position. The maneuvering continues. Black pins the knight with bishop to g4, but the key action is on the queen side, where Caruana pushes his a-pawn, grabbing space. White's bishop drops back to f1, and the a-pawn marches further up to a5. The tension is building, and right here, Kramnik has a golden opportunity to snatch the initiative. He's got a tactical shot to win a pawn, but it's easy to miss. The stronger try was bishop takes the knight on f3, and after the recapture, the bishop just snaps off the pawn on a5. White can try rook to e2, but the bishop simply retreats to b6, and black is a clean pawn up. But in the game, Kramnik plays bishop to a7 instead, and the chance is gone. Caruana immediately capitalizes. The rook swings over to a4, a very annoying piece. He improves his queen and bishop, while black shuffles pieces, trying to find a plan. Now it's Caruana's turn to miss a shot. He has a powerful pawn break that would have caused black serious problems. The move to play was pawn to d5, blasting open the center. After knight to e7, the bishop comes to b2 anyway, then knight to h5, and the white knight jumps into c4 with a crushing position. Back in the real game, though, Caruana plays bishop to b2 immediately, letting Kramnik right back into it. The center finally explodes. The d5 pawn push arrives, leading to a flurry of trades. Knights jump into the action, and after the dust settles, a black knight lands menacingly on f4. Caruana snaps off the pawn on e5, and Kramnik repositions his queen to d6. This next move looks active, but it's actually an inaccuracy from Caruana, inviting a dangerous attack. He should have played a much quieter move. The better path was queen to d2, keeping everything solid. If black trades on d3, white simply recaptures. Then pawn to c6 and bishop to a3 keeps the pressure on, and white's position remains clearly better. But instead, Caruana hops the knight out to g4, and this gives black a real target, but Kramnik misses the punishment. The way to exploit white's last move was to challenge that knight immediately. The correct move, creating massive problems, was pawn to h5, kicking the knight. It has to go to e3, then knight takes the bishop on d3, the queen recaptures, and after pawn to f6, black is fighting back hard. But in the game, Kramnik plays knight takes d5, a serious mistake that hands the advantage right back to Caruana, and Caruana does not need a second invitation. The rook comes to d1, the queen to c3, and all of white's pieces coordinate perfectly to build a monster attack on the king side. The rook lands on the powerful d5 square, completely paralyzing black's position. Kramnik is forced into passive defense as Caruana prepares the final blow. And here it comes. Caruana uncorks a knight sacrifice, taking on h6 with check and forcing the black king out to h7. Absolutely brilliant. Knight to f5. Caruana offers his rook on d5 as a sacrifice. The point is, if black takes it, a knight fork on e7 will win the queen. A stunning move, and Kramnik takes the bait. He captures the rook on d5, but this is a decisive mistake. Declining the sacrifice was the only way to stay in the game, but now it's all over. And Caruana finds the killer follow-up, the only move that wins. Pawn takes pawn on d5. And here's the crushing idea. If black plays, bishop takes the knight on f5, white recaptures with check. The king has to move to g8, and now the pawn takes the knight on e6, winning a piece and the game. Kramnik tries to defend with his queen to f6, but the white rook swings over to h4 with a devastating check. The king steps to g8. This is an inaccuracy. The best defensive try was trading queens on h4, but this just makes white's job easier. Caruana keeps the pressure on with knight to h6. Check. And now, the fatal error. The king steps to f8, but this walks straight into a crushing pin. The game is over now. And Caruana doesn't hesitate for a second. Bishop to a3, check, and the pin is deadly. Black tries blocking with knight to c5, but it's not enough. The only way to prolong the suffering was to block with the rook on e7. The perfect response. Bishop takes the knight on c5 with check. This is the only move that keeps the win, clearing the way for the queen to join the final assault. Kramnik is in a lost position, but this recapture is not the most stubborn defense. The slightly more resilient, though still losing, try was blocking with the rook on e7 instead. White would continue with knight to f5, and after a queen trade on h4, white's pawn recaptures, and black has to deal with the f5 knight, giving him a few more moves to struggle. But in the game, Kramnik recaptures with bishop takes bishop on c5, allowing white to deliver the final blows. And there it is. Queen takes the bishop on c5, check. And this is the final mistake in a tragic position for black. There was one last way to keep the game going, even if it was hopeless. The only move was rook to e7. White's knight still comes to f5, and after a queen trade on h4, the white pawn takes, and black can play rook to e8, at least saving the queen for a moment. Instead, Kramnik blocks with his queen to e7, walking right into a simple game-ending tactic. The game winner, knight to f5, a beautiful shot that attacks the queen on e7 and threatens the bishop on h7. Black is going to lose his queen, and the game is over. And at this point, Vladimir Kramnik resigned. A fantastic attacking performance from Caruana, and white wins. Here's the simple tactic that Kramnik saw coming. Black has to defend with bishop to h7, but then knight takes the queen on e7. The rook recaptures, but then the rook takes the bishop on h7. The king must move to g8, and white is simply up a queen.